The Leaders Coach podcast is about connecting leaders to an identity that will help transform their leadership by engaging in conversations that lead to opportunities for growth, authenticity, and vulnerability. As we're unlocked, we simultaneously empower others to live and lead unique and authentic lives. Let's go deeper. Welcome to the Leaders Coach podcast with Dr. Shanita Brown. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Leaders Coach with Dr. Shanita Brown. Man, it has been a while since it was just me and you pathfinders. So my hope and my belief is that you pathfinders, that you are creating the way, you are leading the way, and that you are being the way, right? And so good to have you guys back. I know, not I hope, but I know that you all have been enjoying the episodes of the Leaders Coach podcast with all of our guests. We've had some great guests this season, as we've had previous seasons, right? This just keeps getting what the old people used to say, gooder and gooder. I know that's not the proper way, so I know the proper way is better and better, but gooder and gooder, right? And so we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to have these great guests. And I know there was something that from these guests that you've learned, something that helped you to grow, something that reminded you of just who you are, something that grounded you. And I've gotten so many compliments and good things about the show. And so for that, I'm grateful to you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, y'all already know how I do. And so I do want to encourage everybody out there to catch up on any episodes that you've missed from season 1 to season 2 up until season 3, because it's kind of like a TV show. If you miss a few episodes and then you jump in, let's say if you missed the first 4 episodes and you jump in on the 5th episode and you're like, oh, what happened? How did we get here? And so that's kind of how the Leaders Coach is, right? Like, how did we get here? So make sure you guys are checking out those previous episodes. And as you are checking those previous episodes out, I even had to check out an episode last week. I was at work and, you know, life be life and work be working, right? And so I had to go all the way back. Literally, I was just sitting at my desk and I was like, man, you know, just contemplating, thinking, like, I just have to get through this day. And what dropped in my spirit was here I grow again. And I was like, I think I did an episode on that, didn't I? So I'm thinking, and so I went back to my Spotify, the Leaders Coach Spotify account, because I typically use Spotify. For you, it may be Apple, maybe Amazon, whatever streaming platform you use. But for me, I use Spotify. So I went back to Spotify. I was scrolling down through the titles, and I found Here We Grow Again. And that was the first episode, my very first episode of the Leaders Coach podcast. And as I was listening to it, I was like, ooh, I just needed to hear that again, because sometimes we just have to be reminded. And one of my coworkers came in and she said, "You listen, is that you preaching?" I said, "Girl, no, it's the episode from my podcast." I had to go back. I had to remind myself of who I am, and not necessarily just who I am, but here I grow again. Sometimes we get into some challenging positions or challenging times, and it could be discouraging when that's all you see and that's all that's surrounding you and that's all you feel. And it can be discouraging to think about, oh, here I grow again, because I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about God keep me from going off, blowing up on these people, right? And so I said that to say, I know that even with this being my show, the Leaders Coach podcast, if I had to go back to listen, to reflect, to think about things, I know that could be true for you too. So I just want to encourage you to engage, to go back, to listen, to invite your family and friends, right? Invite your family and friends to be a part of something important. I'm excited I'm looking forward to some great things. Season 3 will be ending soon, but this summer, so you guys stay up to date on our social media, on Instagram at the Leader Coach Pod. That's the Leader Coach Pod. Also, leaderscoach@ShanitaBrown.com. That is our email address. You guys can also go to the leaderscoachpodcast.com as well as ShanitaBrown.com. And then on my personal Instagram and my personal TikTok and Twitter, which is now X, you can find me at Dr. Shanita _Brown, Dr. Shanita _Brown. So you guys are in for a treat today. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. I think it's really important. We're still in our series of self-awareness. And if you really don't have a grasp or understanding of self-awareness, I encourage you to go back to season 3, episode 1, numero uno. And there we tell you about self-awareness. And so you guys know how we do with our segments. We're going to start with our question of the day. Our question of the day. And that question of the day, it says, what would constitute a perfect day for you? What would constitute a perfect day for you? I saw this question. I said, man, the first thing that popped up in my head was being on a beach. Yes, with the sand between my toes, with the sun not too hot, but kind of like a sunset, but not quite a sunset. Nice breezy weather, maybe about 74, 73. And I'm laying on a lawn chair or one of those fancy chairs with the umbrella over my head. So what constitutes a perfect day for you? I want to hear yours. And so you guys can email me at leaderscoach@ShanitaBrown.com. Email me at leaderscoach@ShanitaBrown.com, or you can just DM us on the Leaders Coach Pod on Instagram, the Leaders Coach Pod, and you can say, hey, I was listening to the show, and what constitutes a perfect day for me would be this. I would love to hear what you have to say. All right, so moving on. We're going to do leadership quote. All right, so I'm pretty excited about this leadership quote. I think it's really, really good. It was again this week. I don't know. It was this past week, and this week I was, it was just it's a lot going on, a lot of things going on. And when I say a lot of things going on, meaning it pretty much, of course, with work things, some things I'm just like, oh man, God, this is something has to give, right? Something has to get better. And so with that being said, I was listening to Tobe Wigway. He is a hip hop artist. And one thing I like about Tobe, he's a conscious rapper, what I would say a conscious rapper. So he talks about real stuff. He don't just be cussing and talking about with this woman, with that woman, I got all my money. Like, he's really a conscious rapper. And so if you've never heard of him, I would encourage you to listen to some of his stuff. His name is Tobe Wigway, and that last name is Nwigwe. And he has this song called Cage Birds. And I know Maya Angelou, she has a poem. It's an autobiography. I think it's a book, if I'm not mistaken, and it says Why the Cage Bird Sings. And so he uses some of her lyrics, some of her stanzas, come on poets, some of her stanzas in his lyrics. And so he says in I guess the chorus part, he says, I was about to sing it because I have it in my head. Let me sing it. No, you know what? Let me let me say it first, and then I'll sing it. He says, we come from where most don't break free. We had to learn why caged birds sing, but we fly even though they poisoned the sky. We don't cry. We go take our piece of the pie. So let me sing it for y'all a little bit. We come from where most don't break free. We had to learn. What? My voice is hoarse. Let me stop. Anyhow, but it's called Cage Birds. And so I've been listening to that song this whole week. And let me give you a little context. The reason I've been listening to this song, number one, I feel like it's very encouraging for me, at least in what I was feeling this weekend. And that's important. That's why music is so important. It's important what you feed your soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. It's important what you feed your soul when in moments of when you're down or in moments of discouragement or moments of distress, because it's like food to your body. And so this week it's uh I know what I want to say. I'm just trying to, it's my show, right? So you know what? Come on, sometimes I gotta remind myself it's my show. My work culture has not been, it's not the best work culture that I prefer to work in, right? It's at least with me being in my position that I'm in, there are a lot of opposition and odds stacked against me with lack of resources, lack of support, lack of things that are needed to get things done. But your girl is a winner, so I'm going to win every time. And that's not being arrogant. That's just me having to align and center myself and remind myself, like, Shanita, you're not new to this. This is just a new industry, right? So you the skills that you've learned, you have to bring it and apply it to this new industry, right? And so this song that I was listening to, Cage Birds, it's we come from where most don't break free. We had to learn why cage birds sing. And so I thought about that, and I thought about it from the perspective of the lineage that I come from, not taking away from anything from the men in my family, because the men they've shown me so much just in life. And one day I am going to honor the men in my family on my show, because they have helped me navigate through some things in my life. They've been strength when they've been a certain type of strength that I needed. And so just thinking about, I come from a lineage of strong people, particularly strong women. And I think about my grandparents, my grandmother, my grandfathers, my grandparents. They were born between like the 1938 to like 1946, somewhere in that era. So they were born in the Jim Crow. They were born with civil rights. Civil rights not being so civil, right? They were born in all these things. And just seeing their perseverance. I even thought about this week, my great grandmother, which is, we call her Big Mama, Martha. And just thinking about, she was born in 1922, and thinking about her. For some reason, I'm just going back through my lineage, right? And I thought about it. We come from where most don't break free. And so I had to encourage myself even this week, like, we had to learn why cage bird sings. And so when I think about it from a physical standpoint, from a social economic standpoint, from a oppression in a racist society, and not to say my workplace is racist, so please don't get that twisted. I'm just thinking that I'm just using this as an example of how it was with my grandparents. And so I'm like, man, it was a point where they couldn't break free because of the oppressed, because of, women couldn't go to school, women couldn't work, or because of the color of their skin. And so they had to just learn how to sing, right? Because it says we had to learn why caged birds sing, but we fly. Even though they poisoned the sky, we don't cry. We just go take a piece of our pie. And so I thought about my lineage, my ancestors being in this cage, and not necessarily just a slave cage, but just a cage, maybe in their minds, of physical cages, mental cages, emotional cages. And all they could do was just sing, right? Because that was the way for them to even experience a bit of freedom, by just hoping in their own mind, in their own mindset, to be free, even though they couldn't physically taste it or see freedom. So I came from where most just didn't break free. And so for me to be where I am in this time, in this space, I had to, come on, Shanita, I know you feel what you feel, and your feelings are true in this moment, because these are real experiences in your bodies. But baby, you come from a lineage that prayed for opportunities that you're getting today. And I had to speak to myself this week, because I had to learn why caged birds sing. I had to understand that my great grandparents, and my great grandparents, they sung of freedom. They believed in freedom. And so I had to think about, even in my system, even where I am with work and all these different things that's going on, even though the sky is poison, even though this systematic oppression, even though these systems, this gatekeeping, I have to take a piece of the pie. Why? Because I have to go back and remember, I know why my big mama had to sing. I know why my parents had to sing. I had to learn why my great great grandparents had to sing, because I am experiencing a freedom that they weren't able to experience. They were only just able to imagine it. And so that's my quote for it. I feel like preaching. It's a preacher in me somewhere, because it's coming out, because I feel it. I had to learn why Cage Birds sing, because I come from a place where most didn't break free. All they had was their song. Come on, somebody. And I had to remind myself, Shanita. Yeah, I had to call myself Shanita. Even though the sky may seem poisonous, even though the oppression and the system and the culture is not to your liking, even though you feel like it's sucking the life out of you, we go fly and we go win. And that is a testament, like I told you earlier, the lack of resources and support, all those things I said, but I'm a winner because I'm a fly, even though they poisoned the sky. So that's a homage, paying homage to my grandmother, my grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, my great-great-great-grandparents. I never met my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandparents. Never met them, but I've heard stories of them. And one day when I die, and hopefully they in glory, hopefully they accepted Jesus. Hopefully they're in glory. And when I get to glory, I get to meet them. Say, man, I am what you prayed for. And so I want that to encourage you guys this week. You find your own song. Find your song and hold on to it. And watch what God does. And so let me finish. Let me move on, because I said that the preacher in me shall come out. And so our next segment is root check, right? If the fruit is off, the root is off. If the fruit is off, the root is off. And so what are you rooted in, right? What are you rooted in? And so what is your leadership rooted in? Or what are you rooted in? Because what you are rooted in is how you're going to lead. And so this today actually starting a series at church, and we were talking about faith. And Hebrews 11:1, this from the Bible, it says, now faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And so as I was sharing today with the people, I was talking to them just from the perspective of your faith we have to be rooted in the things that we know that we are being led to do, even though we don't physically see it, or it doesn't look like we're going to accomplish it or get to it, right? We have to be rooted in that faith, right? Faith is, again, confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. So I'm sure that this is going to happen, even though I don't see it. I'm hoping and believing that this is going to happen, not because in my own belief, in my own hope, but the way in my faith, right? The way God is leading me and where he's guiding me. And God will always give you these confirmations. He'll always give you these small things that you need to continue on your path to show you that you are going the right way. And so if I'm finding it hard to believe in something that the Lord has promised me, or that I know to be true, then I have to figure out, what am I rooted in? Am I rooted in fear? Am I rooted in despair? Am I rooted in discouragement? Because my fruit, the outer part of me is going to show what I'm rooted in. Okay? And so again, faith is the thing that we have to be rooted in. Even if you're listening to this show and you're not a believer, meaning you're not a Christian or a Christ follower, you still have some element or some sense of faith, right? Some element or some sense of something is greater and bigger than you, serving a higher purpose, right? And so, in having confidence that, hey, it's going to happen, it's going to come to pass. And so I want to challenge us, as I've been challenged. Lord, God knows I've been challenged. As I've been challenged in making sure and checking to make sure that my faith is rooted in me. So therefore it comes out in my relationship. It comes out in my the way I live my life, my lifestyle, right? So you have to live this life as though you're rooted in something that's greater than yourself. I remember my mom, she would say, I remember she had an old Honda. She had a Honda, I don't remember what year, it was a gray Honda, silver Honda. And she will always say, it didn't have an alarm on it. So she would say, use her mouth, beep, beep. And she said, oh, I'm believing God for a car. And, a few years later, she actually got a car with the alarm. So she didn't have to beep, beep. What she did was just hit the key probe. And it said beep, beep. It locked the door for her. And so that was faith, right? Confidence in what I hope for and assurance in what I do not see. And I'm still walking in that way because I walk by faith and not by sight. Moving on. What inspired me this week? Inner work for outer impact. What inspired me? A few things inspired me this week. I think I can go ahead and do two because it's my show, right? So number one, those who follow me on social media, I put a post last week and it was talking about breathing, right? So I was just saying that I go to a stretch lab now. Well, it's called iFlex, and I have a stretch therapist, and she stretches parts of my body, my arms, legs, hips, and it's just one of the greatest feelings in the world, right? And so in the video, and I encourage you guys to go look at the video. It's called Breathe. It's one of the latest videos that I put out, so you can go and look at it yourself. And so pretty much this week at work, I know I'm always talking about work. I said, man, just kind of had a overwhelming moment, right? And one of my students, won't say his name because if I do, he gonna think he's famous, but he said, Dr. Brown, breathe. I said, you know what? You're right. I need to breathe. And so after class, I told him, I said, hey, thank you so much for telling me to breathe. He said, see, I watch your TikTok. And I said, well, you need to share the video. No, I'm joking. But he said, I watch your TikTok. But what inspired me about that, what encouraged me was that I have these students that are not only listening to what I'm saying, but they're watching what I do. And it encouraged me because he saw me in a moment of being overwhelmed. And he said, just breathe. He said to me the things that I encourage the people to do, right? And so in that moment, he held me accountable. Just breathe. And guess what I did? I said, you're right. And I said, breathe. And I said, thank you. Because sometimes we have to be reminded just to breathe. We have to be reminded of the things that we teach or that we say that we live out, right? Because life happens and we just have to get back in alignment to the things that we say that we're going to do. And so that was an amazing thing that inspired me. Like, man, these kids are listening. Yes. And so the next thing was one of the ladies that she doesn't work on my campus, but her and I work hand in hand working with singers. And she mentioned, so anyhow, talking to her this week, is kind of venting to her about some things behind the scenes stuff. And she said, well, Dr. Brown, I hear you, but the way you carry yourself, your confidence, your boldness, the way you do things, I wouldn't even know that these things were happening behind the scenes. And that inspired me so much because you're with you 24/7. 365 days. You're with you, right? And so you know how your internal world is in turmoil, or if it's how it's acting and what it's doing. You know that because you're in you, right? you're but in my mind, I'm like, I know they see me trying to put out fires, right? Because that's what I feel on the inside. But from the outside, they're like, oh, you're doing a heck of a job. We didn't know. And in my mind, I'm like, about to scream. But that's not displayed. That's not what that's not what I display, right? And so again, if the fruit is off, let's go back. The root is off. And so I have to be rooted in something. And not only am I teaching you guys about self-awareness this week or this season, I've been trying to be self-aware, baby. You hear me? I've been trying to be self-aware because it's so important. because, and again, that inspired me because it was like, man, Shanita, you doing this. Your inner world, your opposing thoughts, your thoughts that are coming that are not welcome, they're getting to you, but you're really doing this. And I wish I had a camera where I can actually, I'm outside myself, but I'm looking at myself to see, like, man, you doing a doggone thing, girl. Because in my mind, I want to wish you Merry Christmas. Let me stop. Because in my mind, I'm like, ooh, child, I was defeated today. But they don't see that, right? And so sometimes it's just us. It's just us in our own minds and our own thoughts. And sometimes we just have to tell those thoughts, shut up, leave me alone, because I'm doing the doggone thing, right? And so now that's going to get us down to our topic for today. Because again, we're talking about self-awareness, and I try my best. Nobody's perfect, as I tell my students, but I try my very best to respond with wisdom and not reaction. Sometimes that reaction be ready to come out, but I have to respond with wisdom and not reaction, because not everything needs your energy. Not everything you have to be involved in. Not everything you have to, you don't have to know everything. I was talking to my sister earlier this week, Kayla Crawford, who was on the show a few weeks ago, and we were talking, and I was telling her that this week it was a few teachers that were telling me some things about some of my students, and I didn't even know about it. Frankly, I kind of really don't care about it. When I say don't care, meaning like, you know, if it wasn't detrimental, it was just, oh, this person did this person did that, or whatever. And so and I was telling my sister, I said, man, teachers were like, you know, your student did this, your student did that. And I was telling her, I was like, they don't know me. She's like, no, because you don't even be in your family business. And so sometimes I feel like I'm so far removed, because when I see my students, I see them as students. I don't have to necessarily be all up in their personal world, their personal life, what they got going on, what they ate yesterday, you know, who they dating now. That's not me. Sometimes less is more for me, right? Less is more, and I'm good with that. And so anyhow, so in this particular situation, I had to respond with wisdom and not reaction, because again, you know, things are brought to me, and we make the choice to decide if we want to engage in those things or not. And I was just like, you know, hey, it is what it is. Don't know how you know, but okay. and just learning how to protect your world, right? Protect and set those boundaries, because baby, my boundaries are strong. You hear me? Strong. We're going to talk about that later. So let's go ahead and just jump into this, as we were just talking about just it's kind of, I wouldn't say mastering our emotions, but just kind of working through those emotions and those things. And so real quick, internal self-awareness is understanding what's happening inside of you. And then external awareness is understanding how others experience you. So internal, again, what's happening inside of you. As I go back to that lady I was telling, she was like, hey, you don't look like you are putting out fires, because you're walking confident boldness, but on the inside of me, I am aware that I'm about to bust. I'm like, right? But her external self-awareness, how she experiences me, is like, you're calm, cool, and collected. And on the inside, I'm like, baby, I'm not calm, I'm not cool, I'm not collected, right? And so those are the levels of self-awareness that are very important, that we as leaders, we have to definitely dive into. And so great leaders just don't manage people. They manage themselves first. And those who follow me, you've been following me for a long time, my slogan is lead yourself first. I'm a firm believer. You can get results. You can master goals. You can do all of these things. But if you are not managing and leading yourself first, you are not being an example of a leader. Because anybody can Google how to leadership traits, right? And you can Google that and figure out how to do that. But being a living example of that, it's what matters, because now people are going to be like, man, how were you able to respond with wisdom and not reaction? How were you able to do this? And then you can invite them into your world, and they don't have to use AI, because AI don't have no emotions or no feelings. Let me move on. So emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. Again, the internal and the external self-awareness, which self-awareness is the foundation for every effective decision, relationship, and response. There are times when it's a lot happening at work, and students that come to me and like, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown, Dr. Brown. And I just sit there sometimes. They be like, Dr. Brown. I'm like, give me a minute, because I'm processing. Like, I'm trying to process, because oftentimes I know how I want to respond. I'm just trying to use wisdom in what to say and what not to say, right? So that's one of those things. And so what we have to become better at, Pathfinders, is that we have to learn to understand and recognize and name our emotions, because these emotions leads to stronger leadership, healthier relationships, and better outcome. And so now that we know a little bit about self-awareness, because you can't lead what you won't face. And I know me, I can shut down, I can shut you down and go on about my business, right? And be okay. But I'm learning even in this season that, okay, and especially with help of Holy Spirit, okay, God, is this something I should engage in with this situation? Or is it just me, like, I don't want to deal with it because I'm just in my own way. I'm just in my own feelings. I'm just in my own thoughts. I'm just, you just want to be by yourself. Or is this something I need to engage in? And so I'm learning how to, all right, let me stop, let me think, let me process, let me hear Holy Spirit. God, is this something that needs my attention? Is this something that I need to get involved in? Is this something that I need to be in the business of? Because if it's not, I trust me, I don't want it. And when Holy Spirit tells me yes, I'll be like, Lord, you sure? Because your girl, I'm good on this island by myself. I don't be in people's business. I don't have, baby, y'all better ask my family. I'm good, right? But I'm just learning, because that's a part of my self-awareness. I'm just learning to be able to recognize, hey, what needs my attention, what does not, right? And giving those things my attention. So name it to navigate it. So the importance of identifying emotions, you have to make sure you're identifying the emotions correctly and not mislabeling emotions, because that leads to mismanagement. And so I think it's simple. This is something that I've tried to do as well, because again, we're talking about, navigating through these emotions, because we have them. And if you guys go back to, I believe, Dr. Sheba Wilburn's and Dr. Uff Spears and Dr. Dwaylanda Alexander and Miss John Kayla Crawford, go back and listen to those podcasts, because we kind of touch on some of these things, just leading and you being human as well, and understanding that if you are angry, why are you angry? Is it because you're feeling overlooked? Is it because you're hungry? Like, understanding why I'm feeling what I'm feeling in that moment, or what brought it on. Let me give you an example. Last night, I was laying in the bed and a thought popped up in my head, and I became real anxious. And so I was just like, where does this anxiety come from? And I thought about it. I said, well, Shanita, you just had a thought that popped up in your head that kind of made you a little anxious. And so again, with me, with my Christian faith, I had to say, it's a scripture that says, Lord, when my anxious thoughts multiply within me, your consolations comfort me, right? So I had to go back to scripture, because for me, in my faith, scripture is the thing that keeps me alive. Scripture is the thing that puts me back on thinking about who God is and how great he is, and the freedom and the knowledge and all the things that I can experience in him, right? And so, and again, going practical, taking those deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Why am I feeling anxious? I am anxious. What caused this thought? And sometimes, Pathfinders, it's not, you're going to feel these emotions, but every emotion does not need to be analyzed right in that moment, right? If you're able to analyze it, cool. Because again, that's what I did last night. I had the time. I was in the bed and it was just me and my thoughts. So I had the time. But if I'm in a high paced environment and doing different things, I may not be able to, oh, let me analyze this. And it's okay. You can put it on the bookshelf and you can go and get it later and analyze it, right? And so understanding just in those moments, like this emotion is evoking in me. This is the fruit of the root. So the root may not even be anger. The root may be being overlooked right now. And so the fruit is showing up as anger, right? Instead of saying, hey, I am being overlooked. So name it to navigate it, because we'll identify ourselves with our emotions. I'm angry. And then now people call, oh, that's the angry black woman. That's the angry little boy. That's the angry person. When the reality of it is you just feel overlooked, right? And so in order to navigate it, you got to name it. So really just sitting with yourself, what caused me to be angry? I'm not being heard. So now finding ways of speaking where you can be heard in a way that will come over as positive and as not so, but in a way that's friendly, and in a way that, people will know that, hey, your voice is being heard and it's being respected. Respect, that's the word right there. Respect. Okay. So using your voice in a respectful way. And a few more triggers tell a story. So help you be able to pathfind this, identify emotional triggers. Connect triggers to past experiences, insecurities, or unmet expectations. And I think what I have been feeling this week, go back to the lady that said, Dr. Brown, you seem like you're cool, calm, and collected. But like I was telling y'all, in my internal world is like, it's not cool, or collected. So understanding maybe I feel like I'm not good enough to do this, I think for me, it's not necessarily that I'm not good enough. I think what I've been feeling has been not being supported, right? Not being in the different areas, departmental areas that I need, those areas not being held accountable to what they're supposed to do to help me be able to navigate my job duties, right? And so for me, understanding, hey, this is a trigger. So, and I'm not going to go through it now. I may go through it a little later, because now I'm just talking now. So now I'm thinking like, what in your past has triggered that to where you didn't feel supported, to where you had to do it by yourself, right? And the weight was carried, and then you still have to meet these expectations. And so that's something I'm gonna give my own self homework. That's something I need to look into, because again, I'm talking to my pathfinders. This is my platform. And so when I say this is my platform, this wasn't even on my notes, but I'm just talking. And so this is something I need to work through myself, because your triggers don't just reveal what bothers you. They reveal what matters to you. So that goes back to, you're not angry. You are angry, but your feelings or emotions are anger, but you really feel overlooked, right? And so again, triggers don't just reveal what bothers you, they reveal what matters to you. And I guess what matters to me is teamwork, is collaboration, is order, right? Is organization, is accountability. Those are the things that matters to me, right? And so because I'm not getting that, it does come off as frustration. It does come off as anger. It does come off as burnout. Okay. So this is good to me. I hope this is good to y'all. And lastly, I want to introduce this simple strategy: pause, process, and proceed, right? What am I feeling and what do I need to do right now? And that's something I've been working on as well. Pausing, processing, and proceeding. As I told y'all in the earlier example, when the kids, Dr. I know what I want to say half the time. I just be, I can't say that the way I want to, because I'm talking to little Johnny, and little Johnny's a little sensitive. So as Dr. Sheba talked to us about knowing our audience, right? Talk about their communication, that tone. And so I have to pause. I have to process, and then I'm able to proceed. And this works for me. Again, this is a part of being self-aware, and nobody masters this. We're not masters of this. We are constantly evolving and growing as leaders, constantly evolving and growing as leaders because because your emotions are your responsibility. Taking ownership of your emotional responses, not blaming others for how you show up. Your emotions, I don't like to say your emotions are valid or your feelings are valid, because I think sometimes when we think about being valid or validation, sometimes what comes over is it's accepted, or it's legally binding. So meaning if it's valid, that means that it's reasonable, right? It means that it can be supported or backed up. And sometimes because we feel like, oh, my feelings are valid, they supported, it can be backed up, these are the facts. Sometimes we tie our identity to that feeling and we don't have room to grow. You hurt me, so I'm going to act like this. And because I'm going to act like this, I'm right in my behavior because my feelings are valid. And again, valid, that means that they're acceptable, they're legally bonded. I'm married to these emotions, so that's why I'm acting like this. My behavior, because my feelings are valid. But your behavior is your responsibility. And so your emotions are real. They are true to you in that moment because they're bodily experiences that you are feeling. Yes. However, you don't have to be married to them. You don't have to be legally binded to them. These are my feelings. This is how I think. This is what they made me. And I get it. Trust me. I'm not downplaying that because I've been there, done it, and sometimes I'm still there. I have the right to feel this way. Yes, you do. Because you're experiencing it in that moment. But however, you are still responsible for your emotional responses. And like I tell people often, that I believe, and I could be, let me speak to a therapist on this one, but your feelings are your feelings because let's say it's me and another person, and let's say it's me and Sarah, and then we have Johnny, right? Johnny steps on my toe. Johnny tells me, oh, your eyes are cross-eyed. And he tells Sarah the same thing. We're both going to interpret that in our own internal way, right? So Johnny, he may have offended me, but he may not have offended Sarah. So again, our feelings are our responsibility. Johnny didn't make you feel sad. Now his actions and what he said may have triggered something in you, and if we go back to that trigger, it may have revealed what matters to you. So what matters to you may be your looks, I don't know, but however, our feelings are personable to us. Can people manipulate that and attach themselves to it to keep us in that emotional world or the emotional ideology? Yes. But ultimately, it is our job, Pathfinders, people, human beings, to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to live here. I can create boundaries in my own world, right? And so I'm a huge believer of that. A huge believer of my emotions are my responsibility. They are. And again, this varies depending on situations, right? So it's not a one size fits all, but for the most part, I do believe that it's our responsibility. Okay? And so as we close this segment of mastering our emotions, it's not about suppressing them, as I mentioned. Well, those words didn't come out of my mouth, suppressing them, but hopefully these examples kind of help you guys understand. It's about stewarding them, because when you lead yourself well, you lead others even better. So again, a few things: understanding, naming, and navigating your emotion. I'm not angry. Well, you may be angry, but anger is really not the root. The root is I feel overlooked, and the fruit is I'm angry. Second thing, triggers tell a story. Your triggers don't reveal what bothers you. They reveal what matters to you. Your triggers don't just reveal what bothers you. They reveal what matters to you. And then lastly, pause, process, and proceed. How am I responding and reacting to what I'm feeling, right? And again, these things are situational, because if somebody that I love gets, I get a phone call, hey, somebody that you love just died, I'm not pausing, processing, and proceeding. I'm going to react because of that person mattered to me, right? And so there are certain, again, that's why I said these things are situational, right? There are certain things that are situational. There are certain things that does require you to pause, process, and proceed. And there are just certain things that are just going to hit you on the spot unexpectedly, right? And sometimes it's those unexpected things that gets us, that gets us off of our emotional intelligence or the self-awareness around our emotions. But even in that, even if you're sitting down and you're in a classroom, in my case, in and out, right? In and out. And again, this is not perfection. This is us just getting better and better. And like I said, as old folks say, gooder and gooder, right? And so you guys, make sure y'all stay locked in and stay connected with the Leaders Coach podcast. You guys can find us by going to the leaderscoachpodcast.com. Also on our Instagram at the Leader Coach Pod. It's the Leader Coach Pod. Let me make sure, because I've given y'all two different things, and so I want to make sure I'm giving y'all the right thing. And it's the Leaders Coach Pod. It is the Leaders Coach Pod on Instagram. And also you guys can email us at leaderscoach@ShanitaBrown.com. You guys can also go to the website, the leaderscoachpodcast.com. And right there in the middle, you can click to leave a voice message. We would love to hear from you. If you got a question, I would love to answer your question. If it's a leadership question, you guys can follow me on my personal social media, Dr. Shanita _Brown. That's on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, which is X. That's Dr. Shanita _Brown. There is another Dr. Shanita Brown out there, so please make sure you got the right one, the right Dr. Shanita _Brown. You guys may say, hey, I need a coach. Dr. Brown, I love what you're saying, what you're doing. I just need to grow in certain areas. You guys can go to ShanitaBrown.com and go down in the middle of the webpage, and you will see, I want a coach. I would love to be your coach. I coach clients all around the world. I coach clients everywhere, and I would love to be your coach. But you guys, until next episode, hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me hear from you. Go ahead and hit us up on our Spotify, in our different platforms, and let us know that you enjoyed this show. Until next time, be up, stay blessed. God bless you. This has been the Leaders Coach Podcast with Dr. Shanita Brown.